Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, speaking from the City Hall in Cape Town rather than the Houses of Parliament that were ravaged by fire earlier this year, South Africa's president delivers his State of the Nation address, vowing to crack down on corruption and calling for unity. Also, in Tunisia, more than 100 judges demonstrate in front of the main courthouse in the capital as they strike over President Kais Saied's plans to dissolve the watchdog that oversees judicial independence. And the government orders absentee teachers to be suspended without pay in Zimbabwe after many stay away from work over a row between the Education Ministry and unions. We hear from a correspondent in the country. But first, in the first State of the Nation address since a fire devastated the Houses of Parliament earlier this year, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa shared his plans to try and reverse deepening frustration with his government. State corruption, a creaking economy, and last year's fatal riots are just some of the issues that has contributed to discontent amongst many South Africans. From Cape Town's City Hall, Ramaphosa set out his plans to tackle some of the hurdle the country is currently facing. Nadine Theron tells us more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa sure knows how to bury the lead. The president only addressed the issues South Africans were eagerly awaiting him to at the very end of his State of the Nation address at the opening of Parliament in Cape Town. It was the first time in the country's history that Parliament sat outside of its usual complex after parts of the building was destroyed in a fire earlier this year. Ramaphosa finally tackled the question of state capture and admitted that a commission of inquiry found that many state-owned entities were indeed exploited by corrupt individuals who looted state coffers for personal gain. Ramaphosa said that those implied in the commission of inquiry's report will be held accountable and that a special team has been established to tackle these cases.
Now, state capture had a direct and very concrete negative impact on the lives of all South Africans, but especially the poorest and most vulnerable members of our society. It has weakened the ability of the state to deliver services and to meet the expectations and constitutional rights of our people. We must now do everything in our power to ensure that it never happens again. Many individuals and companies that the Commission has found were responsible for state capture must now be held accountable.
Ramaphosa was applauded when he accepted responsibility on behalf of the government for the extensive damage caused by the unrest and riots of July 2021, as outlined in the recent reports. He said that the National Security Council will be briefed on new measures that will be implemented to combat the breakdown of law and order in society. Ramaphosa ended his State of the Nation address with a message of unity, saying that South Africa has suffered many blows recently and rallying citizens to come together to overcome them.
Nadine Theron there for us. Now, hundreds of judges and lawyers protested outside of Tunis's main court on Thursday after President Kais Saied planned to scrap the country's judicial watchdog. Critics say that the dissolution of the Supreme Judicial Council would undermine judicial independence. He said the move is actually a strike against corruption and that he would never interfere with the judiciary. Rights groups, though, warn that it's a step backwards.
On Thursday morning, angry judges and lawyers gathered outside the main courthouse of Tunis. They're protesting President Saied's plan to dissolve the High Judicial Council, a constitutional body that appoints and assigns judges.
The judiciary can only be reformed in a politically peaceful and stable period and within a constitutional framework which guarantees inclusive dialogue. Unfortunately, with this decision, Kais Saied chose escalation and an easy solution, which risks destroying the country.
President Saied has accused the council of being partisan and corrupt. He claims it's blocked investigations into the assassination of leftist legislators Chokri Belaid and Mohamed Brahimi in 2013.
The CSM High Judicial Council doesn't intervene in court cases. That's against the independence of the judiciary and judges. The CSM manages the careers of judges, and that's totally different.
Foreign diplomats have expressed concern over the president's decision.
In an exceptional period, state institutions need to be maintained, especially the CSM, which is the biggest pillar of the Tunisian democratic system. It's the biggest guarantor of the continuity of democracy and the guarantor of individual and collective freedoms in Tunisia.
Faced with so much outcry, President Saied appeared to backtrack Wednesday night, saying he wanted to hold on to the council as an institution. However, he repeated his decision to dissolve it during a government meeting on Thursday. This week, police have blocked judges from entering the council headquarters.
Well, Libya's unity government faces a fresh power struggle after Parliament named a rival prime minister on Thursday. The Eastern House of Representatives voted former Interior Minister Fatih Bashaga to head up the government. A year ago, Abdelhamid Dbeibeh was appointed as chief. On Thursday, he survived a drive-by assassination attempt. Now, Dbeibeh's mandate was supposed to end last December, but planned elections were cancelled. He said he will only hand over power to an elected government. Bashaga's appointment will likely deepen rivalries between the Eastern Assembly and Dbeibeh's Western-based administration in Tripoli. French prosecutors have opened a terror investigation into an attack on park rangers in northern Benin in which 6 people were killed. One of the victims of the ambush in West National Park was a French national. Unidentified fighters raided a ranger patrol in what's suspected as being the deadliest of a string of extremist attacks that have hit the north of Benin since December. To Zimbabwe now, where a rows erupted between the government and unions after many state school teachers failed to turn up for work this week. The education ministers ordered the suspension of all absentee teachers for 3 months without pay. Ryan Truscott tells us more.
Schools opened in Zimbabwe on Monday, but many pupils were turned away because there were no teachers to teach them. The government tried to lure staff back by offering them a 20% pay hike and an offer to turn some of that money into $100 at a highly beneficial exchange rate. It offered teachers other perks too, including permission to import a car duty-free and free education for up to 3 of their children. But the main Zimbabwe Teachers Association says that while it appreciates the offer, it isn't enough. It and other teachers' unions want salaries restored to what they were in 2018, when teachers earned more than $500 a month. Zimbabweans have been hard hit by spiraling prices in shops caused by the devaluation of the local Zimbabwe dollar against the US. Faced with a worsening economic squeeze, the government isn't giving in. Today, Education Minister Evelyn Ndlovu ordered school headmasters to suspend any absentee staff members for 3 months without pay, pending an investigation. She didn't say how many teachers this would affect, though the Progressive Teachers Union of Zimbabwe claims up to 150,000 teachers could be suspended. No one is backing down. The Zimbabwe National Union of School Heads says it won't comply with a government order to report absentee staff. It says it will lead to a victimization of teachers who it says aren't on strike but simply can't afford to go to work.
Ryan Truscott there in Zimbabwe. Now, the Horn of Africa is facing its driest conditions since the 80s and millions are facing starvation. The World Food Programme's sounded the alarm, saying there's a desperate need for food aid as the threat of famine has forced thousands into camps. Andrew Hillier has more.
On the outskirts of Mogadishu, they pour into these camps by the thousands. The threat of starvation hasn't left them with any other choice. Some have walked hundreds of kilometers to get here in a desperate search for food and water. For those who do make it alive, there's barely enough food to go around. Hospital admissions of malnourished children are already surging.
The admission cases was also highly increased. Also, there was also mortality numbers of this severely acute malnourished children.
The World Food Programme says people across the Horn of Africa are facing the driest conditions since the 1980s. It warns that millions could starve unless action is taken.
After 3 failed rainy seasons, the Horn of Africa is in the midst of a severe drought affecting up to 13 million people. Southern Ethiopia, northern Kenya and Somalia are impacted, livestock are dying, crops are failing and populations are being forced from their homes.
Forecasts of below-average rainfall could bring yet more suffering in the months ahead. Humanitarian agencies say they need more than $300 million to keep famine at bay in the region.
Well, many Burundians are relieved that the EU's lifted sanctions that were first imposed in 2016. The decision was made as an acknowledgement of the positive trend of the country's politics, but many politicians and NGOs say that human rights violations are still a significant problem. Hussein Kone has more.
It's a massive sigh of relief.
Je vois que cette mesure vient dans un moment où le Burundi, dans un moment très opportun. Là où le Burundi va gagner beaucoup de choses.
The EU's choice to put an end to sanctions on the country were warmly welcomed in Bujumbura and beyond. Since 2016, European funding for the country's government had been suspended to demonstrate opposition to the violence in Burundi that stemmed from the political crisis. The head of the capital's port says this is the beginning of a time of hope.
C'est une mesure qui nous a tant endeuillés, mais heureusement que les preneurs de cette décision viennent de se ressaisir et de la relever sans condition.
But not everyone agrees. Numerous NGOs, as well as members of the opposition, have criticized the move. They say nothing has changed on the political stage.
Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, on peut dire que l'on est dans une situation vraiment confortable en termes de droits de l'homme, lorsqu'il y a notamment des disparitions forcées toujours qui s'observent, lorsqu'il y a des arrestations abusives, lorsqu'il y a tout ce qui rime avec l'injustice dans ce pays.
The United States had already lifted their sanctions last November. They said the situation in the country had changed enough.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.
France 24, every art form.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.